Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District to order on March the 8th, 2017, International Women's Day. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Good morning, Directors Ashby, Bruins,
Present.
Frost,
Present.
Guerra, Harris,
Here.
Hume,
Here.
Kennedy,
Here.
Lee,
Here.
Morin,
Here.
Natoli, Orozco,
Here.
Peters,
Here.
Cerna,
Here.
McGarvey,
Here. Why?
Villegas,
Here.
Warren.
Love it. Yeah.
Carr,
Here.
you have a quorum.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Would you please join me in the pledge to the flag?
Yeah, you can note this and reflect.
This meeting of the Sacramento Regional County Sanitation and Sacramento Area Sewer Districts is being broadcast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T U-verse cable system. The meeting is closed captioned for our hearing impaired viewers and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will replay Sunday, March 12th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. In accordance with Government Code 54952.3, compensation for the meeting of these legislative bodies is required to be verbally disclosed. The amount of $100 will be paid for each member participating today as a member of the Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District, and the amount of $100 will be paid for each board member participating today as a member of Sacramento Area Sewer District. Compensation for Sacramento County Supervisors and City of Sacramento Council members is paid to the county and city respectively to partially offset the costs of those governments. Compensation for other board members is delivered to the individuals. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker identification form located at the back of chambers and hand it to the clerk. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Please silence your electronic devices at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you call the first item?
The first item is acting as Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District. Your district consent matters are items 1 and 2.
Is there any discussion on the consent calendar?
Second.
We have a motion by Director Cerna and a second by Director Natoli. Please vote.
Warren.
Dick Moore.
Who?
He got it. Andy got the second.
We have 2 seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Abstentions? The motion carries. Would you call the second item?
Okay. Item number 3 is comments from the public on matters not on the posted agenda.
I have no speaker slips for items not on the agenda. I have some for item number 4. Is there anyone here to discuss something that's not on our agenda? Would you call item number 4, please?
Okay. Acting as Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District, public hearing for sewer rate and fee increases and introduction of the Regional Sand Consolidated Ordinance Amendment.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I'll go first and then spend a couple of minutes to tee it up, and Dave will finish the presentation. And I think we have 3 or 4 members that wanted to speak. So, Regional Sand has a long-term financial plan that looks at 10 years ahead, and we do this annually. We update it, and the proposed rate increases that are in front of you are consistent with the financial plan that we have recently updated. The increases are the last needed rate increases for the Echo Water project. If you remember, there are a couple of new members, so I wanted to put a little bit of history here. This project began at the end of 2010 with the permit that we received from the state that required us to remove ammonia from our wastewater, also add filtration, the cost of which we were estimating in around $2.5 billion at the time of the permit was issued. But since then, the costs have come down for a number of reasons. And also, we were estimating at the time the project was conceived the rates to be in the mid-60s by the end of the decade to pay for this project. So a lot of favorable things have happened since that time till now that resulted us in asking for a rate increase that's slightly under $40 by the end of the decade, actually into 2022, slightly past the end of the decade. Permit litigation, we litigated the permit and settled with the state, helped us, the state backed off some of the requirements, helped us reduce the capital cost by $150 million, between 100 and 150 million. And we spent some money up front do the technology selection. We selected the technologies that are right for the situation that we have, not overdoing it. That helped us save hundreds of millions of dollars. On top of it, the largest low-interest loan that we have received in the nation, the last one of which I signed a couple of weeks ago, at 1.7%, as opposed to 4.5%, 5% that we have to go into the market. That's saving us between $500 million to $1 billion in interest alone. And last but not the least, the very proactive nature that your board has used to approve these rate adjustments. You have gone incrementally since 2010. That helped us immensely in not only paying for some of the early capital expenditures, but also ultimately to keep these rates as low as they are today, or at least our projections are. So all of these have made, essentially contributed to where the rates are going to be. Since 2010, by the end of this rate adjustments, as I said, this would be the last for the Echo Water project. We will have increased our rates from $20 to $39, which is a $19 rate increase, of which approximately $16 is going towards Echo Water project. The remainder of the $3, or almost 11 to 12 years, is for the inflationary adjustments for the operation and maintenance of the existing assets and the staff COLAs and whatnot. That is under the inflation, as low as the inflation was in the last few years. That is still at or below the inflation, roughly about 1.5% over year increase. Not even actually year over year, so it's a flat line. Along the way, we have unwound some of the high interest rate debt, some of the risky debt, and we have cleaned up our debt portfolio with the cash that we were able to accumulate, and our credit ratings have improved. So this is essentially as a prudent rate increase as we have been able to accomplish. And with that, I wanted to let Dave go ahead and finish the presentation to see where the numbers are and what we have done in terms of the outreach.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brocker. Good morning. I'm Dave Achinacek from Regional SAN, the Policy and Planning Department. And we will be talking this morning about some proposed impact fee and rate adjustments, just as Prabhakar had mentioned. We will be reviewing a 3-year impact fee recommendation. And then from back in October, we started you authorized a request of ours to go forward with the Proposition 218 process for a 5-year rate adjustment. We will look at that, and then also we will be holding a public hearing for, as required by the Proposition 218. So a lot of this Prabhakar just went over is the foundation of why we were having to come here for a rate adjustment. And as you mentioned, it was a result of our 2010 permit that required us to build substantial facilities out of the treatment plant, what we call the Echo Water project. To add to that, it is required to have that project done in 2023. What I wanted to point out is that we still hold on to this $1.5 to $2.1 billion price tag for that project. Many of the projects that we have, there are multiple that build into the Echo Water project. Many of them have been bid, so we have a pretty good understanding of what those projects will cost over, to completion. But they're significant. The tertiary treatment facility is probably one of the more significant projects that has not gone out to bid. It's still in design now. So until we have that bid price and award, that we won't have a real clear understanding of the remaining cost of the project. And then, as Prabhakar mentioned, we landed a SRF loan for $1.6 billion has helped out tremendously in keeping our rates low, as low as we can get them. The basis for the fee calculations, back in 2012, your board authorized us to implement a rate and fee methodology. Also in 2012, we had the industrial rates come to your board, and they were falling behind at the time, and we were approved to move them forward to catch up with the rates of other customers. And then to help alleviate some of the pain of that transition, we went through a smoothing process. We used non-rate, non-fee revenue to help us slow down the rate increases for the industrial customers. We have reached the end of that. This year is the last of that smoothing process. It is a rebate process. So at the end of this fiscal year will be the last of the rebates that we provide for the industrial customers. Okay, so on to the impact fees. Again, we have a 3-year plan. Again, as I'd mentioned, we still have the tertiary treatment facility to bid and award. 3 years gets us into the time frame where we can have that in our hands and fine-tune the final fee recommendations. Starting with the residential commercial class, these are based on an ESD, an equivalent single-family dwelling. Across the top is our single-family dwelling for the 3 years of fee. And then I've also included the other 2 categories of residential, which are the multifamily and age-restricted. Those are simple multiplications of an ESD. So the multifamily is 75% of a full ESD, and then fairly recently we entered the age-restricted category, and that has a 60% of the full ESD fee. And then commercial customers are ESDs, but they're based on other types of parameters, like restaurants are based on square footage, and that's related to ESDs. And then hospitals, for example, are based on beds, and those are related back to ESDs, but it still has an ESD base on it.
Could you tell us what the age-restricted category is?
It's related to 55 and older communities. So when a community itself identifies itself as an age-restricted community, only a full community, 55 plus, which any of them that are age-restricted pretty much are at least 55 plus, the 60 plus also qualifies. But those are the communities that we reached out to at the beginning of this fiscal year and brought them into this new rate and fee structure. So you'll see it also on the rate structure as well. Okay, on to industrial customers. Those folks are billed a little differently than our residential customers. Their fee is based on flow and then the waste strength. So the waste strengths include the biochemical oxygen demand, which is organics types in the waste stream, total suspended solids, the inert type materials, total Keldol nitrogen, which is ammonia and nitrogen compounds, and then pathogens. Those folks, as you can see, they have the BOD, TSS, and TKN are fairly flat over the course of the 3 years. What goes up is the TKN and pathogens, and again, that's related to the Echo Water Project. Let's go back here. So we've done quite a bit of outreach, as we normally do during the course of our rate and fee adjustments. We had letters to stakeholders and many letters out to development communities, Chamber of Commerce, building trades, etc. We have a website that we continually update. That website has all of the facts and figures associated with the rate adjustment, or the fee adjustment as well. And then we have a letter that goes specifically out to each one of the industrial customers to alert them of the fee adjustment. And then we also offered a meeting for any of those industrial customers that wanted to talk about what their fee adjustment would be. We did not get anyone to show up for that meeting. Okay, on to monthly rate recommendations. Again, this is a 5-year plan, and one of the benefits of that is that it takes us out pretty much right to the end of the Echo Water Project, and allows us, there's actually one more year that we'll be tailoring out. The last year In 2023 will be when we're finishing up the Echo Water project. So there may be some minor adjustments to the rate. This gives us an opportunity to adjust appropriately. The funding needs that we have is $100 million. That's what we'll receive from that 5-year total, 5-year rate increase. And $85 million of that goes to the Echo Water, the largest portion of that. And it's not just, it is both the capital costs, and then also there's some increased operating costs associated with the Echo Water project. So that's included in that $85 million. And then other wastewater treatment facilities, those two have some inflational costs. So that's the other $15 million that we'll see coming in from that rate adjustment. Okay, so here are the rate recommendations for residential and commercial. And again, these are folks who are based on an ESD, so it's an average of their flow and load. And similar to the fee structure, the single family is listed out there, and then I also included the multifamily and age restricted. Those again are the same multipliers. They're 75% of an ESD is for a multifamily and 60% for an age restricted. And similarly, the commercial customer has based on square footage or number of beds. And then for the industrial customers, again, they're based on a flow and load calculation. And I guess the thing to maybe point out here is that, again, for the flow and load, the flow and the BOD, TSS, those end up being pretty flat over the several years. It is, again, the TKN and pathogens that go up slightly over the time, and again, that's related to the Echo Water project. One of the things I wanted to point out too, though, with respect to the rates are slightly less than what we came to you in October. When we started the Proposition 218, we proposed a certain rate structure for industrial customers. We re-looked at some of the smoothing and how it is the financing came in to pay for the Echo Water projects. So it is slightly less than what you had seen at that time. What I wanted to bring back to you, back in October when we started the Proposition 218 process, there was a bit of concern with regard to the industrial customers and the impacts associated with the rate increases. What I've provided to you is in this slide is similar to the slide I provided last time. There's an average impact, which is actually each year. I want to make sure I'm clear with this. It's each year's impact, and that's the average across all of the industrial customers. And that is based on a current flow and load condition. You can also see the least impact. That's actually a cumulative impact. So the lower end of the industrial customers that are affected by this, these are ones that are like water treatment facilities and cooling towers that discharge, primarily it's just water. So their effects are pretty low. But you can see that, after the 5 years, they only go up 1.39%, pretty small. But what I wanted to get to is when I was here last in October, we were looking at the highest impacted industrial customer was Mitsubishi Rayon, and they were 83% total over the 5 years. And as I'd mentioned, these rates actually came down a little bit from when we were talking back in that board meeting. Now it's actually 57% is what Mitsubishi's being hit with over the 5-year collected. But what I wanted to provide with this slide is what that meant over the years and what it meant as the other higher end affected customers. So you'll see in the gray area, the most impacted is still Mitsubishi Rayon. They discharge quite a bit of ammonia. So they do have the higher impact, but you can see that the second, third, fourth, fifth, and it continues down for 15, 20 other customers that are significantly less impacts associated with them. We have had conversations directly with Mitsubishi Rayon and informing them specifically of what it is that was going to happen with our rates, and they are more interested in just paying the rate differential than doing anything different with their operations. They acknowledge that there will be a rate increase, but they are okay with that and would rather go that way. So we have not gotten any negative reactions from them. Okay, again, on to outreach efforts. Again, a pretty diligent effort in getting out to communicate the rates and fee changes. This is rate because it's associated with Prop 218. newsletter with background, the regulatory drivers, and how it is we got to where we are with the need for rates. We developed a website, again, and also did social media. 4 informational meetings. Those are just open to anyone in the public, and had those strategically located around our service area so that folks would have a chance to attend those. And then, of course, we went to city councils, conducted had a dedicated phone line for this effort. And again, we had a specific outreach to the industrial customers. Protests. We did get some in. The tally that we see here, well, let me first say that, when we get protests, we do respond to them either with a postcard or a more detailed letter, depending on what their protest is. If there's some significant substance to what their protest is, we would go through a specific letter to address the concerns that they have. Otherwise, if it's a general protest, it would just be a postcard. We got, actually now, as of today, we have 29 protests that have come in. So each of those has been addressed. And even the one of them that came more recently was actually a thank you. So that was encouraging, but I still believe there's some folks who have some concerns about the rates. That is actually significantly less than the previous rate adjustment periods too. So back in 2014, we had 175 protests, and then back in 2011, it was 596. So our tapering of our rate adjustments, I think, is helping, although it is still of concern. Moving on to the ordinance adjustment schedule. Today we are having our hearing. We have the date that's listed there. I understood just as of this morning that we are not having a board meeting on the 22nd, so the hearing will be held on April 12th. So that will be the time in which we formally adopt the ordinances that formalize the rates and the fees. And then each one of the years that those rates adjust, we'll be making notifications in the bills, and also we'll be coming to your board and reconfirming that those rate adjustments need to happen. Okay, so the recommendation today is to receive the ordinance changes and continue the item to the 12th of April for adoption. And there is a number of other recommendations in the board item.
Okay, thank you. Before we get to public comment, Mr. Natoli has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Dave, for the presentation. Question I have goes back to the amount of money to be generated by the 5-year program. I think I heard you say $100 million cumulatively. So by year 5, what would it be generating? Would it be roughly $20 million annually, then the fee increase would be, because you're going to ramp up to this. So, but because that becomes in the static number. So I want to be sure before I ask my next question as to what that number would be.
So each dollar raises about $7.2 million in revenue. So once we have implemented all $4 by the end of the 5 years, that would be bringing in roughly $28 million at the time, year after year, based on that rate increase.
So it's more than 20. So it's about $28 million annually.
Because we're gradually raising, so cumulative is $100 million.
Right.
For the
No, that's right. But I want to know, so the annual amount, so by year 5. And of that, then I heard you say of the $100 million that would be raised, about $85 million was dedicated to the construction Echo Water project. Of that, then the remaining $15 million, some was capital, but much of that was dedicated to operating costs, either inflationary and or otherwise. And looking back over the past 10 years, obviously we've added incrementally with the rate increases. Some of those $3 bumps had 40 cents of that per $3 was for operational. What I want to get an understanding about then, but some of those previous rate increases were for operations for the existing facilities, and so now we're taking on, $1 billion worth of new facilities, plus or minus, probably more than $1 billion. Yeah. How is that accounted for in here? Because what I see is, as much as we're going to complete the construction program by 2023 and by 2021 be well on our way to seeing that completed. I guess I want to get some sense about what the projections are, because you're going to, and whether it's labor costs or energy costs or whatever, because that takes a pretty good bite. And, and basically we're saying costs that we have some control over on that side, whether it's labor contracts or it's, trying to adjust our energy consumption and so forth, but they're pretty fixed. And so what will that continued bite out of that be? I guess that's, I rolled a lot into that question, but I want to get some sense about that.
So what we project today, again, this is a projection before we start the new facilities, and we're starting some this year, by the way. The chemical facilities are being started. We project the increase in O&M costs to be about $42 million a year more than what we have for the current facilities. When the filtration and the ammonia facilities come online in 2023, the total increase would be $42 million a year. Annually. These increases will take care of that. So when I mentioned $16 dedicated to the EcoWater project, $16 raise roughly $115 to $120 million a year. That's what the revenue will come in. So there's roughly around $70 to $75 million, somewhere thereabouts, is our debt service related to we won't know completely until we finish the project. And then the other $40 million is to pay for the projected O&M cost increases. And one of the things I wanted to add on here is, even though you are approving a 5-year $4 rate increase over the 5 years, every year we'll look ahead and say, do we still need the dollar or 50 cents, whatever we're raising? And if we don't need them, as our projections get more clear, we don't need to implement. We will come in and say, we don't need 50 cents, or we only need 30 cents to go, and that sort of thing. So we will be, by the time these rate increases are done, we should be in a position to pay for the total debt service and the O&M costs that we're projecting today with the rate increases.
Okay, so just let me kind of projecting out. Again, there's some unknown out there, but and we're going to be right back into a permitting process, and so assuming, at least for a moment, in a pleasant way, that we don't get any new permit requirements that would, generate another $1 billion in construction or something along those lines, that it'd be safe to say that if things are pretty static on the permit side, and we don't have any major impediments when it comes to what we're doing and how we operate, and any unforeseen, big operational issues, that we could be pretty flatline for a number of years relative to rate increases?
Yes. So going back to the 10-year financial plan, obviously our financial plan can't predict the regulatory environment in 2021. By the way, our next permit is due in 2021. So assuming the condition you just laid out, we project, I think the only rate increase is about 50 cents at all after 2021 or 22, and it would be flat through 2025. That's our projections at this point. We believe, because, like I said, you've been so proactive in raising these incrementally, where we're able to bring cash in and to pay for some of the project earlier on with the cash, and also wind down some of the debt, which would help us on an annual basis to reduce the debt service costs that can then flow back into the operation side of things. That helps us keep a very flat rate profile.
Okay, thanks.
You okay? All right. I'm having a problem with the age restriction, and I can understand us making a value judgment that we should have a decreased impact fee for age-restricted communities, but for the monthly assessment, I'm having a difficult time understanding the philosophy behind that, and why is it that we would give age-restricted people, regardless of their income levels, a discount, and not give people who are poor a discount? And by doing this, are we subsidizing wealthy people at the expense of poor people? The poor people actually subsidizing the wealthy people. Is that rationale off? Or
so Prop 218 requires us to charge them commensurate with their impact on the system. That's essentially.
Prop what?
Prop 218.
218.
So Now, we can slice. It doesn't tell us, how broadly you categorize our customers or how narrowly we categorize the customers. Obviously, the narrowly we categorize, the more work we have to do. That means we have a lot of categories. So the rate age-restricted came about because of a potential litigation. And I think I can say that.
Well, actually, can I
I'm
just,
sorry, go ahead.
you might
Sorry.
want to just talk about the studies that you've done that showed the impact of
That's right.
Senior communities, age-restricted communities is less on the system, so that's how we got to the 60%. It's based on studies that can support that versus poor people / rich people. They all theoretically use the system the same. They have the same impact on the system, so that's why their fees are charged equally. So it's based on studies. I mean, if this Prop 218 requires that if you're going to have different rates, you have to show that there's a proportionality issue. So that's the same with the 75% for multifamily. The studies that Regional San has conducted show that the multifamilies have less of an impact or use of the system. So that's the differential between the 75% and then the 60%.
So, but the communities don't pay the monthly fee. Individuals pay the monthly fee. That's not right?
Community, like multifamily or?
Age-restricted community does not pay the monthly impact fee. An individual actually has to mail in a check. Is that right?
I'm not sure how they all work, but
Yeah.
but
So I'll jump in here. When you designate an age-restricted community, the state has a certain requirements how you designate an age-restricted community. Majority of them should be 55 plus. Living in that community. So we have selected those communities to test against a normal single-family communities. So what we found is during that study, it's a multi-year study, where the discharges, the waste characteristics coming from these age-restricted communities, the group of the houses, are roughly 60% of what's coming from a single family. Because typically, the age-restricted community has fewer people living in it, and there are restrictions in terms of the numbers that can live because it's part of their CCNRs and whatnot. So the rates are based on that actual study, and which Prop 218 requires us to only charge based on what they're impacting the system. So we were able to establish that impact and then be able to adjust accordingly based on that study, and hence we are in that.
I see. So are we allowed to do a low-income program?
I don't know. I'm going to ask.
only if you use non-rate and fee revenue to subsidize the cost of service. And I think we have that. That's this ARP program.
So I guess maybe, Chair, your question may be, can we review the low-income areas individually? Is that what you're asking the question?
Yes. I didn't see it in the charts that you displayed.
Now, we have not categorized, there's no categories called a low-income category, because I think they're probably spread out in many parts of our service area, not as neatly designated as a senior housing communities or not. So which makes it very difficult to study just those communities if they exist at all. Number one. Second thing is we have the rate adjustment support for the low-income communities in terms of if you're twice below the federal poverty level for a family of four, $40,000, you will get $150 a year discount. That's already there. And those that are paying bills or have, for example, even in the mobile home parks where their bill is itemized, they get that credit. They can call in and they can get the
Okay, we just didn't see it on these charts.
Yeah, it's not in here. But
Okay.
Yeah. But we have, so in all our presentations to the community, we have actually encouraged and sought those things.
All right, got it. Okay, if there are no further questions, we'll hear from our public speakers. First one is Joni Hughes. Ms. Hughes?
It's Joanne Hughes.
Morning.
Good morning to you elected officials. I've been up here before, so I'm sure you recognize me with my hat on, okay? I'd like to say My name is Joanne Hughes, and I live at 8978 Silver Bay Way, Sacramento, California. And I've been living there since 2004, okay? And I bought the home in 2004. And since then, my water rates have gone up sky high, okay? And the bill itself is not the water itself, it's the fees, okay? The fees are much more than the water bill itself. Okay, I'm not in a low-income bracket, okay? So let's get that straight right now, okay? But my thought is, as my rates continue to go up, I wonder, my goodness, can I stay in this state? Can I continue to live in this state? Because I don't want to move anywhere else. I came here when I was in the military. I retired from the military, and I spent 7 years overseas. So I like California. But California is getting so expensive. And while I'm up here, you guys only give us 3 minutes to talk. Why is that? I could see you guys giving us maybe 5 minutes, okay? Because there's not that many people speaking. And my thought is this. I don't agree with you're saying the costs are effective, and the fact that, okay, every year since I've been in my house, my rates have gone up. I don't think that's cost effective. I think there's cost overrun. I don't think you're using our tax money effectively. Enough is enough. You say you have to do these permits because California is requiring so many environmental protection. The federal government is starting to downsize on those environmental laws. It's time for California to do the same exact thing. And stop putting it on us, the taxpayers. You're spending our money. If I had a budget, okay, the budget I have in my house, if I did the same thing you guys did with our money, I'd be on the street, okay? I'm just saying I'm angry because you guys are not using our tax money, our fees the way they should be used. It's time for you guys to consider we the people that you are elected, okay? And stop wasting our tax dollars and our money. And this project hasn't even been built yet, and you're spending billions and billions of dollars. To me, it's being wasted, okay?
Thank you. Chris Ware.
Good morning, Board. Thank you very much for hearing me. I am the Research Director at the Greater Sacramento Economic Council. I am here to urge you to strongly consider, in your new rate structure, completely eliminating all impact fees on industrial employers. Sounds radical. Let me explain why we feel that this is such an important move. First of all, these impact fees act on a tax on new employment for the region. So it discourages the formation of new jobs, discourages the growth of our local economy. Researchers who have looked at this have seen that imposing impact fees has led to the reduction of jobs in the regions that they study. There's two other reasons that this is actually not a very difficult thing for the Regional Sand Board to do. First of all, industrial impact fees represent a minuscule portion of your revenues. And furthermore, the economic growth that you could create by bringing in new industrial users would greatly increase your revenues much more than the lost revenues from eliminating impact fees. This threat is real. And by the way, I handed out some slides and you can follow along me. Just recently, Lucent Automotive, an electric car manufacturer, wanted to locate here in Sacramento. We are a natural place for an electric automobile manufacturer, given that California is the largest purchaser of electric vehicles. When they came here, they were faced with a $3.3 million sewer impact fee. Instead, they left to go to Arizona, where they had no impact fee, and instead received a $46 million supportive packages for placing their plant there. That was the equivalent of 2,000 jobs that we could have had here in Sacramento, but left to another state. Now, what would Regional Sand be giving up by eliminating industrial impact fees? Right now, from our discussions, they represent a minuscule proportion. Less than 1/2 of 1% of your revenues are coming from impact fees. Now, one of the reasons that I discuss this, and I'm against the concept of putting impact fees on industrial users, is even though I can't claim to have written the book on utility pricing, I have written a chapter in a book on specifically utility pricing. In my review of the entire literature, the references to impact fees for these types of services like electricity or sewage, there are zero references on why you would want to impose an impact fee to make prices optimal. And the reason is quite simple. When you have a large plant that you can have to pay for, so this eco plant is an enormous investment, the way to pay for it is by expanding your user base as much as possible. Placing taxes that discourage people from connecting to your system are exactly what is harming your rate revenues. And then we looked at this, and we just did some very simple calculations. If you forego an impact fee, that you could actually see increases, that you would get the use fees from the industrial user. You would bring in new impact fees from houses from the people who came here to work in this new industrial facility, and you would get the use fees from those new houses. When all told, this would actually end up increasing the revenues of regional SAN, therefore reducing the burden on all your existing users. For all those reasons, we really strongly encourage you to consider this, both for the financial health of regional SAN and for the economic health of the region. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Say again? Yeah, let's finish the public speakers. Anne Marie Lakem.
Ladies and gentlemen, actually, this is my first meeting, but I've actually been lucky to live in my house for about 10 years. And I mean, ever since this whole Sacramento County utilities bill has actually increased us to like $40. And I mean, not just this particular project, but just as annual increases, I mean, has just been astronomical. Like if I average out my bill, it's basically, I know it's like every other month, but it's like the way I'm perceiving things in the future, the way this thing is going, both with this increase and other yearly increases, we're looking at $100 a month. I mean, if you average things out for low income, for the less fortunate, this is just going to create so many backlash just on people like myself, like the hotels, motels, the different businesses and stuff will want to recoup some of that money back. So they're going to actually charge the little guy more for their services to help recoup some of that money, right? That you guys are going to let them have. I think they have enough already, myself, for the charges that they've actually done. This might eliminate jobs, like that gentleman was saying. It might eliminate jobs to help recoup that money from all this other backlash, you know? And I already work minimum wage myself, and with all these other increases, annuals or otherwise, I'm looking at having to have a second job. And I mean, I have my first job. People that were retired actually are out working now because they can't no longer afford all of the utilities in here, or they're actually just simply moving out of California just because they can't afford to live here. They just can't afford to live here. And I mean, myself, I used to be in the financial district. I actually want to see all the accounting records. I want to know if they're public or not. I want to see where all my money goes because I'm the budget in the family, and I'm in a single-family home. And I mean, we stretch things so far. We get less and less every time, and you guys get more. You know, I don't think you guys know what it's like for the smaller people. I really don't think you guys get it, what it's like to live out there. I mean, I live in an area where there's so much homeless, there's so much people leaving their homes because they can no longer afford it, so they just, you know, let it all go, and then the homeless move in, and then they cause fires and all this other stuff. I don't think you guys really get it. do you guys really see how many homeless are like panhandling on the freeway off-ramps? You guys don't get it.
Thank you. Director Hume.
Thank you, Chair. First, I wanted to answer the question you had. Having developed an age-restricted community, I can explain, and staff eventually got there, but the reasoning being is by law, you're restricted to a maximum household of 3, the husband, wife, or couple, and a caregiver. So if you think about the amount of laundry, showers, dishes created in a maximum household of 3 versus a family of potentially 5 to 7 people in the household, that's what allows for that. It uses less water and creates less flow. With respect to, I'm going to address some of the comments from the speakers. With respect to Mr. Klein and the industrial impact fee argument, I would be in favor of doing that because I can tell you that I call it the country club paradox, in that country clubs, other than when they are trying to create or maintain exclusivity, if they get into dire financial straits, they realize that they're in the dues business, not in the membership fee business. And so the idea being is you get the people in and get them paying monthly, and that's healthier for your bottom line operating costs. But I can also tell you that we did a study down in Elk Grove when we were looking at our impact fee deferral program, and that one item alone is not enough to move the needle to influence the influencers to bring those jobs to town. If you look at a $3.3 million sewer impact fee versus a $46 million incentive program, there was a lot more to the equation than just that. So I'd be willing to do it, but I don't think you're going to see necessarily the outcomes that Mr. Klein presented. Now, with respect to the actual issue being discussed, and I appreciate the comments from the folks, and we pay these fees too, so I mean, we do understand the impact to the monthly bottom line, but imagine, and what was mentioned by Joanna with respect to the environmental restrictions, this is what happened to us, is the state came in and said, you will upgrade your plant. So imagine if somebody knocked on your door and told you all the appliances in your house are outdated and you have to replace them all this month. That's what you're faced with. You have this amount that you're going to have to come out of pocket or you're going to have to move. Well, we don't have the option of just closing up and moving. So, but I want to look at, if you look at the regional SAN rate history, and I don't know if this was provided to members of the public, but going back to 2007, a $1.50 increase, $1 for operating expenses, and 50 cents for debt service, trying to pay down those debts. In the next year, $1.25 entirely for debt service, trying to pay down those debts. And then when we were faced in 2010 with the expense, which is a $2 billion expense, for upgrading, $1.5 to $2 billion expense for upgrading the EcoWater project, the board made what I thought was a pretty prudent decision, and that was if we pull the Band-Aid off quickly and take the hurt up front and look at doing some real rate increases, front load them so that we can, as Prabhakar said, capture the purchasing power of that cash and not incur all this debt that ultimately costs us more in the long run. Then we can adopt more of a pay-go or pay-as-you-go system so that we're not, paying potentially more. And so, if you think about this in the bigger picture of things, there's a saying that you have to break a couple eggs in order to make an omelet. And the ultimate omelet is how much we're going to be paying when all this is said and done, which in the early forecasts, many of the board members that were here at the time will recall, was in the $60 to $65 a month range. So not only doubling where we were to where we are proposing to be, but then doubling that again. But because of some cost savings by the low interest loan that we received, by capturing the purchasing power and front loading that money early on, by the project coming in for less than was originally projected. Now we're looking at basically getting, as Prabhakar said, by 2022, 2023, to where we are sustainable at the rate that we're at and not having to continue increasing. So look, nobody up here likes raising rates because it affects all of us. It affects the least among us. It affects the entire community. But when you're dealt a certain hand and you have to be responsible about it, there are very few choices. And so, I don't like doing this, but I'm in favor of how staff has put it forward.
Mr. Natoli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of things I wanted to ask about before this comes back to us, I guess, in April now. As it relates to those who are least able to sustain the increase, the lifeline rate, We're talking about projection over 4 years here, I guess, and we've made one adjustment in the not too distant past. I guess I'd like to have us take a look at that, because otherwise the ability for households to manage fixed incomes and/or just the limited resources, it chews away at it, even if they qualify under that particular aspect of the lifeline rate. And so I guess I would ask that over the course of this period of time, again, hearing what you said earlier, Prabhakar, it may not be $4 at the end of the day, but it may very well be. Your projections have been pretty right on, and so I guess I would ask that, one, we take a look at that.
There are a couple of things I wanted to add to that, Director Charlie, if I may.
Sure.
So we totally recognize the fact that we've had to raise these rates, and it affects especially the low-income folks. In the last 7 years to 8 years, we have gone from $60 a year of subsidy or the incentive to $150. So roughly about $8 or so. So to date, we have increased by $15 since 2010. Of that, $8 is subsidized. I mean, I certainly would love to have been able to do all of it, but unfortunately, we have to use the non-rate, non-fee revenue to do it. And we also need to balance with the, bringing the jobs and all of that. So the one hope that I have is, especially with the talk about the raising interest rates, which affects in other sides of it, that we could potentially bring additional revenue that allows us to look at more closely, can we offer more subsidies in the next 4 or 5 years? And we certainly will look at that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Because, again, I would just emphasize the point that unlike some things in life where you can choose to either purchase them or not, there's no choice. When, again, it's part of your occupancy of your home or your apartment, your mobile home, whatever it is, and you can't choose not to have a sewer service. So basically, it's under the structure of the way we form our communities here and provide those services. It's not a choice. I mean, you can use less water, if you're on a meter rate, but from the standpoint of sewer, there's a flat charge. It takes into account a whole lot of things, and so I think that's always in the back of my mind, is that this is not something that people can choose to have, whether they use very little of it or use a lot of it, unless you're in one of the categories where you measure the amount of constituencies in the water that's wastewater or some other volume charge. Here, there's no choice, and so some of the comments, obviously, that we've heard past, but certainly today, I think ring pretty true, that this is not an area where you budget. You just, if the increase comes, you got to pay it, and if not, then we can lien your property and get it. We're always going to get it at the end of the day, and so I think that's important. The other thing I would also like to ask, just along the lines, obviously, the industrial users. I certainly get the point. I think Director Hume made a good point that, with regards to the Lucent, vehicle, that $3 million would have been, not insignificant. But I don't think when somebody else is offering, $46 million, that it necessarily is going to change it. But I recognize that we want jobs. We want people to be able to have good paying jobs and to be able to afford to live in this region. And I think the cost of living certainly is becoming much more challenging for folks of a lot of different income stratas, certainly here in this region, but throughout California. But I guess I would ask that I think we've been a partner in the past when there have been certain industries that have looked at either expanding or locating or relocating to this region. And I don't know what flexibility on an individual basis, but again, if there's a package, certainly the sanitation district, you want to offer good, reliable service, make sure that we meet our permit requirements, but also to be a part of that. And I know that with regards, going back probably 15 years or more, that in putting some of the packages together for some of the industries that were here, large employers that were basically threatening and or serious about leaving, that we were able to work with them in that category. And so I guess I would hope that if you don't have that flexibility, if you need it from this board, more than just kind of a blanket saying we're not going to do this at all, recognizing that it may be a barrier and somebody looks at it, they make the decision, we never even know about it, but if we get into those discussions, I certainly would be willing to entertain, depending upon what they would bring to the table. And I don't think that it needs to fall, though, to the residential user. And that's part of the choices we make here, is you've got only a few categories. We've added some because of some of the state requirements, but nonetheless, either the residents or homeowners pay it, or industry and or the commercial. And I mean, there's some variations on that, and so I think that we have to be careful about that balance as well. You want people to be able to afford their home and afford their utilities. You also want to have a place to work, and you want to encourage employers to come to this region and make their investment here. So, but again, I don't know, Prabhakar, do we have the ability, do you as director, working with this board in the event that we have specific proposals, to look at how we might package something that would be more attractive and make us competitive, more competitive, I guess, than is presented here today?
As you well know, that Regional San is one of the few, if not the only one, that had the Economic Development Bank credits that incentivized who wanted to come here.
Right.
And obviously, that didn't necessarily draw a lot of industries here. We had a lot of, there's still a number of them, especially with the city of Sacramento, they're on the books still, that are yet to be used. One of the things I want to bring to the board, which I'd mentioned earlier on, is through a subcommittee direction. There may be about $1 million or so at the current rate of interest earnings that we may be able to look at incentivizing how you can use that pot. We have some environmental obligations with respect to the region. We wanted to partner and put some investments there. So I definitely want to have the discussion through a subcommittee and bring it back so that we have some other means as these economic bank development credits are phasing out with additional money that perhaps we can use as a leverage to bring in more kind of thing. So I want to hear the ideas and then bring back to the board for direction.
Okay. Thank you for that. Last note I would make is that is an important reminder that we did have the economic development credits that were allotted to each of the member jurisdictions of this body, and those they've been utilized entirely and or in good part, but that was an opportunity certainly during the recession, but even prior to that, for jurisdictions to use that as one of the I think enticements for folks, certainly from the employment category, but also from a residential category, to buy down some of the impact fees. Thanks.
Director Peters.
Thank you. I wanted to ask our council, Lisa, on the 55 and up communities, how do we justify if you live in a senior community, you get a discount, but if you don't live in the community, you live in just the regular, Foothill Farms,
right?
How do you justify people there not getting a discount?
Right. So I think, as Director Hume and also Prabhakar mentioned, the 55 and older age-restricted communities have certain restrictions on how many people that can actually live in the homes, and so that's the basis. Because in a regular home, there may only be 2 people living there, but there's nothing to restrict multiple other members from living in the household. So that's the basis of it. And also, like I said, Regional San has done actual studies on those types of communities and actual communities. So that's the basis of
the study.
Right.
But it's really not so much the community, it's the restriction on a larger family living in the house, I guess. The ability to have more than 2 people living in it. Okay, and then I wanted to ask Prabhakar, are there any other California jurisdictions who waive industrial fees?
None that I know of. We can certainly do research. One thing that comes to my mind is the Government Code 66,013, which requires us to collect the fees commensurate with the impact on the system. Now, if we, by virtue of waiving fees for certain class of individuals or the entities, which means others are picking up the bill, the only avenue, at least sometimes I pretend like an attorney, which is dangerous. The only avenue that I see that we have is if we have this non-rate, non-fee revenue pot. If we grow that pot, we can use some of it to potentially waive the industrial impact fees. So that is a vehicle that I think we have available. The thing is, we just have to figure out how to grow that pot. But we will do some more research to answer your question. But off the top of my head, I don't believe, and I'm going to look to Lisa to see if
Right, and I agree. I'm not aware of any, at least the major sanitation districts that I'm familiar with, Orange County and LA, they have similar impact fees, and I don't even think they have the incentive programs that we've had in the past. So as Prabhakar said, Government Code 66,013 requires proportional share of your payment of proportional share of your impact, and if we don't collect that, we would have to collect it from non-rate and fee revenues.
And very few people have incentive programs like we do. Actually, some of them are trying to model after what we have done.
The gentleman from GSAC is waving his hand. Could I ask him to come forward and respond quickly?
Sure.
Okay. In terms of impact fees, I would like you to consider a few things. Go talk to any electrical utility. Electricity is a very similar product to sewage treatment facilities. High fixed costs, low marginal costs. You do not see electrical utilities imposing impact fees on customers that connect to their network. So it is not necessary just based on the cost structure. The other thing is to think about really where are the costs coming in. There's a real error of thought here. When an industrial user connects to the system, there's no increase in cost. This isn't increasing the size of the ECHO treatment plant that's being built. That's already been decided and is a fixed cost that has to be spread over anyone. So it is not true that allowing an industrial user to connect without charging an impact fee, somehow they get to impose a cost on the system without paying for it. And finally, you have the capacity to structure your fees to recover any capital cost that you want. It is very possible, and it is standard in the optimal pricing literature to have a fixed monthly charge that goes directly and is according to the capital costs imposed by those large users. It would be perfectly appropriate for Regional San to eliminate all the upfront impact fees, then restructure your industrial fees to include a fixed monthly amount to pay for capital, and then marginal amounts according to the amount of pollutants that they put in streams. Those are the tenets of optimal pricing in the public sector.
Okay. Did you talk to anyone at Regional San about your theories before today?
I gravely, this is our fault. I apologize. I've only been on my job for 6 months. We are just getting up to speed on this. We are just in the middle of putting together some research on this, and we were not aware, and that's all on us, of your rate-making process. But I'm more than perfectly happy to talk to anyone at Regional San about ways to restructure these rates that could increase your revenues and improve our economy.
Okay, then I had one final question for you. Your slide says Lucid faced $3.3 million impact fee versus a $46 million incentive package. Are those like dollars? I mean, is the 3.3, was that an industrial waste fee? What was that made up of?
Our business development people say when they were working on trying to attract Lucid to come here, that was the request of the impact fees from the sewage treatment plants. That included yours and Sacramento. I'm forgetting that was a combination of your impact fee and the Sacramento impact fee.
Sanitation District?
Right. The City of Sacramento Collection Agency impact fees, as well as the Regional San.
So these are all sewer-related fees?
Which is presumably the total.
Yes.
Now, I was going to say, the City of Sacramento does have the credits.
That was going to be my next question.
And they have probably more than any other jurisdiction.
Do you know if your organization took that into account with Lucid? Did you go to the City of Sacramento and ask them for?
This is before my time, but I will talk to our business development people.
Okay,
yes.
that might be good for you to have a conversation with the staff here to find out what the possibilities are going forward.
We will definitely look at the possibilities and to see if that's even
I think it's an interesting concept to waive the upfront fee, but have you've got all those different stacked charges
through the
in
rates. We'll look at that if that's a feasibility.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Cerny.
I was trying to get your attention so you didn't have to come back to the podium.
Bring it in and feed it and milk it for years. I need my exercise.
So I appreciate the fact that you're new. I'm curious, do you understand the circumstance surrounding what Director Hume mentioned earlier? I was going to actually chime in and make the same point about the history back in 2010 about the decision that the state made that has affected a $2 billion issue.
You know, I am fully supportive of having clean water in our rivers in California.
I'm not disputing that.
And I understand that there is this large cost. The important thing from a rate setting perspective is that this is a fixed cost. So you're having to spend $1.8 billion, so some large amount of money to create this new capacity.
Your point is that we wouldn't have to go to another revenue source to make up the difference, right? Or are you?
No, not necessarily. If you look at this largely and think about the increases in your rates that would come from additional houses being built to house the workers, from the use fees from this industrial user, right there, our thumbnail calculations show that your overall rates would increase, not decrease, by waiving
the the rate per household, you're not arguing would have to increase, right? Or are you? Okay.
In fact, my argument would just be the opposite, that if Regional San is able to work to get some of these large industrial users, overall that will decrease rate pressures over the long run on residential users, because the whole idea is we want to expand the number of people paying rates for this very expensive.
That whole theory is based on the fact that we have that capacity, is it not? With the new.
Right, but I think I am guessing right now, but I think that probably you are not at capacity on this treatment plant.
Well, I'm just asking the question: Is it based on the fact that the fundamental basis for it is that we have the capacity?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how does that work from an engineering standpoint?
Yeah, so having capacity is one thing, and again, I will go back to the requirement of Government Code 66713. Right. When somebody comes in and hook up, we have to set up a fair connection fees, and so it requires us to do connection fees across the board, not have certain members not pay, at least not that I know of, and I think Lisa opined so far that that's to be true. But going back to Regional San incentivizing, Regional San perhaps is the one that has incentivized more than anybody else that I know of in terms of through the Economic Development Bank programs, as well as having substantial incentives on the regional industrial rates for well over a decade. Mm-hmm. Our rates until recently were substantially below our competitors, our neighbors. It's because your board has taken that policy to incentivize that.
I guess what I'm trying to do in terms of connecting these dots here, Prabhakar, is if he's saying, yeah, it's his theory of how you can eliminate industrial sewer fees is based on the fact that we have enough capacity to absorb a greater volume of residential users because you'd attract the industry and therefore the growth and the need for the service, and we would not have to adjust the rates on those folks. I'm asking you the question, could we absorb that given our design capacity?
We can absorb. We can absorb additional, we have capacity for probably the next 30, 40 years in terms of the current situation. The question is, will we be able to do it legally, or do we have the legal means to do it?
But that's why I'm asking the question, is because if you don't have to increase on the residential ratepayers, then why isn't that a moot question? I think it is.
Now, there's a certain share. Let's say if the industry brings in 5% of the capacity. So the way the current fee structure is, 5% of the revenue comes from them.
Right.
So if you don't collect that 5%, somebody else has to pay for it. Which would ultimately go onto the residential side of the equation, because the pie is fixed. The cost that we have to cover is fixed. What I think the gentleman is saying is, because if you don't charge industry, it brings more people, right? So if 5%, let's just for discussion's sake, we have 30% capacity left. If we gave 5% to the industry, that brings the additional 25%. But we still have to recover 30% of the cost on the 25% of the people that are brought in by the industry. So which means the industry is not paying for it, but the residential have to incur additional costs to.
Okay, so you're in a kind of backwards way. You're saying it is a capacity issue then.
Ultimately, we have the capacity, but how much do one pays? Do they pay their fair share or not?
Right.
Yeah.
And it depends on what you hold constant, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're telling me that, yeah, it would necessarily trigger a rate adjustment on residential ratepayers, then I can see the legal nexus argument and how Government Code 66,000 comes into play. If not, then that's why I say it might be moot.
Yeah, so again, we'll look at that Government Code 66,013 a little bit more closely to see if that, what the point you're making is commensurate with what's there.
And I think the point is that if we eliminate impact fees for industrial, we would have to eliminate impact fees for everybody. Mm-hmm. Because you can't have one class paying an impact fee and residential or commercial not.
That's a different question.
Well, not real. I mean, it's whether or not we can subsidize.
That's different, though. The nexus, though. Nexus is the payer, whether it's an industrial user or a residential user, paying commensurate for their impact on a system, right?
Right, and if there's one that's not.
That's a different question versus an equity question of whether or not someone ought to have their fee waived versus keeping the other rate at the same level versus adjusting to make up for the difference.
Right.
That's my point.
Well,
yeah, ultimately,
if we're going to charge an impact fee like we are currently, it has to be evenly charged among classes. It can't be subsidized by a class because of the requirements of the law.
And I totally get that. Right. My question is, though, my point here is whether or not it would require the subsidization. That's my point.
Right. It's important to distinguish two things. One is the nexus. What are the costs being imposed by different user classes, and then how do you charge them? And it's very possible that and it's very easy to show that you can have exactly the same amount of cost coming from your industrial users, but charging them without any impact fees. You can either change their monthly use fees to include a capital cost. That's the standard method in the literature on optimal public sector pricing. Or you can find, as we are arguing, that if you bring in new industries, it's going to generate so much new use from new people living in the area, from the use fees from that industry, that in fact you're going to have increased revenue, and then there's going to be nothing to make up in that situation. Okay. So we would not be recommending this if we thought that what we were going to ask you to do is to have residential users subsidize industrial impact fees. That's not what we're asking. What we're saying is that you can actually increase fees by just reducing the industrial impact fees.
Okay.
Again, I don't know. I mean, we're going to have to continue the discussion because I don't know if the examples and theories that he's doing have been implemented in California.
Just to put a bow on this, why don't we do this? Why don't offline? Why don't you work with our engineers and perhaps even our council to maybe vet further what your concept is. I'm interested in it. I just want to understand how fundamentally you believe that this is not going to end up increasing the cost for a different type of user to enter the system.
I think it's a great discussion that should be carried on offline. Ms. Bruins?
Thank you.
I'd be happy.
The question that I have in regard to this same subject is the back page of the waiving impact fee diagram that it pays for itself. This is assuming, well, first of all, the greatest offset to the $825,000 foregone impact fee is the impact fee on 193 new houses. And that's assuming that these new jobs lead to new houses. But if this is a plant, an industrial manufacturer, many of these jobs are going to be labor-rated jobs. Some will be executive, some will be labor, some will be in between. And I would presume that many of the people that go to work for this new plant already live here, and they already own a home. And they're maybe unemployed at this time, and this provides them new employment. And this is all really good, but I think that this formula has some assumptions in them that may or may not be able to be borne out. And if the purpose of this is to show how this offsets this $825,000 loss of an impact fee, I challenge the validity of the formula not only $874,000 in impact fees for 193 new houses, which there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. And in addition to that, the present value of new industrial residential use fees goes right along with that. If those houses aren't built, those use fees aren't going to be paid either. So I just really question the formula that came up with the fact that this is going to pay for itself. So
we'll work with, again,
I think we have to take a look at that.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that, with working with them.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to solve it here today.
No.
But I think it's a good idea to get offline with them. And Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and for purposes of disclosures, we had a conversation about this, being that I was on the way to get on the Economic Council board already. I think what you had to share was really insightful, and but I'm certainly in support of taking this offline along the lines of Director Cerna suggesting the conversation. So I just want to go on record that I would be in support of that. Thanks.
Okay. Before we accept a motion, are there any changes to the dates on this that you want to make?
Yes, as Chair. So the follow-on, the date for the ordinance adoption is April 12, 2017, instead of the March 22nd, because we will not be having the March 22nd meeting. That's the change.
We have a motion on item 4.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chair, can I just add one thing, just based on public comment before we move off the item? Staff had indicated that we'd seen a gradual decrease in the number of protest letters that we received, from 500 the first time to 187 to 22 today. And I just want to remind staff that I don't think that's a reflection of the concern or the interest of the public about the increasing fees. And I certainly don't want to signal that that we should be less transparent about where these fees, the cost associated with them, and what the funds are actually, what the fees are going to pay for, as everything is increasing. I think, in fact, it signals to us that we have to be more transparent about how and what these fees are paying for. I mean, everything about what we do is being good stewards of our services, our infrastructure, our water. All those costs are going up, and so I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we are totally transparent about why we're increasing these fees, and not let the fact that 22 letters that we received this time be a reflection that people are okay with it, right? And I think people know that, but I just want to make sure that we're signaling to staff that that's all the more reason why we need to be forthright in how we indicate to the public about how these fees are going to be spent.
Right. Okay, thank you. Good point. Would you call the next item?
Yes, acting as Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District, item number 5, certification of environmental documentation and approval of the South Sacramento County Agriculture and Habitat Lands Recycled Water Program.
Good morning, Chair and board members. My name is Christoph Dobson. I'm Director of Policy and Planning, and this is a big milestone for our South County Ag program. The project, just to give you a tiny bit of background, it would be delivering 50,000 acre-feet per year of recycled water to the South County for irrigation and also habitat lands. Water is going to be available in 2023 when our Echo Water project comes online. As far as the EIR goes, we evaluated the proposed project at both the project level and the program level, because basically there's kind of two pieces to this. One is, at a project level, we looked at the major transmission main and the pump station that delivers the water. It's kind of the backbone infrastructure. And then, so that's looked at a project level. At a program level, we also looked at some of the more local distribution systems, because we don't know exactly where those pipes will be yet. So what it means is, in the end, is that we will need to do some additional environmental review when we get to that point. And that environmental review will be specific to the construction impacts of those local systems to distribute the water. As far as public outreach goes, we had both a CEQA scoping meeting and a draft EIR public meeting back in 2015 and then in 2016. EIR was posted on websites and went through the state clearinghouse process, all of that. As far as comments and responses go, we received 15 comment letters during the public review period, and actually we received a couple of extra that came in late. We addressed those as well. So there weren't any verbal comments made at the public meeting that we held. The final EIR includes all the comment letters and, of course, the detailed responses to each of those. The entities that submitted written comments were notified of the hearing today so that they could appear if they wish to. As far as findings, we did not identify any impacts that could not be reduced to less than significant through our mitigation measures that are included. So Regional Sands therefore not required to adopt a statement of overriding considerations. As far as next steps, we're going to continue to work with U.S. Bureau of Reclamation on the EIS. That's a federal document that's similar to the EIR, and we're going to continue to do that because that would make us eligible potentially for federal funding if we were to find some federal funding. Let's see, we just wanted to also mention that we have our consultants here as well as a representative from Planning Environmental Review with the county. So if you have any questions, technical questions, they'll be available to answer them.
Mr. Natoli.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. A couple of questions that you think you answered. One of mine is that you talk about at least a preferred alignment relative to the actual backline distribution transmission system. And one thing that I would encourage, and if you're going to come back at a later date with that actual alignment and any impacts on that, is that you're be coming initially through the city of Elk Grove, but also into the unincorporated area, rural roads. And I know that when we did upgrades to both the Walnut Grove and Cortland systems and connected into RCCC Correctional Center with lines that we went into pavement surfaces that are, pretty inadequate to begin with, and in some cases the shoulder on the east side of Bruceville Road is the best section of the road still. And so I guess what I'm going to encourage, as we've done in other areas of the county, and I would trust with maybe the city as well, and let my colleagues speak to that, but is that we're going to work with the local transportation agency to where those impacts are as the system would be built out to assure that the pavement surface, we can coordinate if there's the ability then to actually repair and or replace some of that pavement surface to do that. So I don't put that on the backs of the sanitation district necessarily fund all the costs of that, but I think it's an important coordination so that if we know the project's coming to certain areas, as you move from north to south or east to west, depending upon where this would build out, I think it's a critical piece of it, because we just had discussion yesterday, the Board of Supervisors, on some of the damage to some of those rural roads, and again, many of them were not in great repair to begin with, but I would encourage us to be a partner on that and work closely with the Departments of Transportation, both for the county, but I think with the City of Elk Grove as well. So,
we'll certainly do.
The other thing I wanted to ask about very quickly, though, is this recharge area, this basin, the 560 acres. Where exactly, and is there an exact location of that, or is that just a concept now? You have an area where the soils would be suitable, but you have yet to really pinpoint where that's at?
Okay. You want to bring?
Yeah, I'll have Jose Ramirez come up and answer that.
Ramirez, Regional Sand.
Yeah.
If you look in your board packet, attachment B, there's a map, and the area highlighted with the green color. Can I have the overhead projector, please?
Okay, is that the entirety, or is that just the area that's a larger area, which the 560 acres would be somewhere in that?
I'll show it on the map.
Yeah.
This green area right here. That is the recharge area. Right next to the Consumna River. This area in green.
Right, I'm looking at that. So that's the 560 acres, that's the entirety. So you've actually designated that area versus having a large area which you would want to go to.
So we did look at the soils in the area for potential recharge zones, and these parcels that we identified are the ones that have the best soil conditions to do recharge.
Okay, and you've talked with property owners there, and they're interested in recharge?
Talked to the people that manage and own pieces of the land. There is a property owner that we have not been able to contact, but there is one that owns and also leases land, and he was in open to the idea of doing a groundwater recharge during the during the winter season.
Right.
So the plan is during the summer months we could do regular agricultural irrigation, and during the winter months we could do irrigation.
But it requires field crops because you're not going to put orchards or vineyards in there because that's not going to give you the recharge field you need. So this would maintain either hays, grasses, other field crops, corn, but it's going to limit the ability. Obviously, there'll be some offset, obviously, for the recharge basin, and it's going to be a levied. As I understand it,
at this point, we're not looking at a levee. We're looking at probably a 2-foot berm around the perimeter of the area.
Okay, because it was described as a 3-foot berm with 12-foot wide, which could be a service road, I guess. But that's it's in an encasement area, an enclosure area for the water that you would take to that location. So
yeah, but we will work with the property owners to identify what types of crops they can continue to farm, and also once we look in, if they decide that it is an option to do flat irrigation for recharge purposes, we will work with them on identifying whether or not a 2-foot height berm is enough, if we need to have a 3 feet wide or 5 feet wide. So that part of the project is being, at this point, was analyzed at the programmatic level. In the future, as we have more detailed information for that area, we will develop a project-specific EIR to identify and mitigate the potential impact.
okay, but and again, I don't want too much more detail. So you're going to scrape the topsoil off for. Is this related, at least in the summary that I saw here, the 4 inches of topsoil to create a approximate 3-foot by 12-foot wide berm? That's what was stated in here. Now, maybe something different than that. I just wanted to be sure as you're identifying that, talking with landowners, I know you've done a lot of that, and I appreciate your outreach, that because this is kind of incumbent in the overall that's 10,000 acre feet a year, as I understand, both irrigated use as well as recharge, and you have to dilute the water in order to get to meet all that. So I just want to be certain, because again, if the project depends upon that, then you're going to need, to nail that down. And there will have to be probably some offset for receiving that water if they're going to have to, reduce the crop alternatives on that property, because I assume that's going to be ongoing. Once you put a recharge basin there, that's going to be it. That's going to be the use, and they can farm it for the agreed upon crops, but they're not going to be able to convert that land to something else, because that's going to be a part of your overall program. So you're going to seek an easement for that?
So we will work with the property owners, and again, the intent is that during the summer months they can continue to farm their land.
I get that.
And whether or not we need an easement, we will work with the property owners as we develop as we get into the design phase of the project. Right now, that portion of the project is still at a high level. Okay. That's why we did a programmatic level environmental documentation for that area.
Okay. Again, it's important to the project, and I get all that. And so I want to be. We're certifying this today, and I support the project, and I'm prepared to move the staff recommendation unless there's other questions. But I wanted to ask about that specifically because that's a key piece, I think, to your overall plan, and you'll need to have that nailed down probably at the same time you want to bring transmission lines in too. So, okay, thanks.
Okay. Just want to do a time check. We're almost at 11, and can we maintain the quorum? Say again, Jeff?
I'll be leaving at about 5 after 11.
Is anyone else leaving? Okay, Mr. Hume.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'll second the motion. I'm wholly in support of this project. I think it's a great thing, a reasonable reuse of water. A couple of questions, though. The first is, in looking at the schematic for the transmission pipeline, did we explore potentially running that pipeline along the Sacramento subdivision of the UP Railroad as opposed to coming down Franklin Boulevard? And kind of to Director Natoli's point about disruption of...
Yes, we did. That was an alternate alignment that we looked at. Unfortunately, there's not enough space to put in the transmission pipeline along the railroad. There are other utilities that are in conflict with our pipeline alignment.
Okay, so it was prohibitive from a right-of-way
constructability, there's not enough space to put in the recycled water pipeline along the railroad alignment.
Okay.
There are multiple pipelines like gas lines, high-pressure gas lines, and we have to maintain certain setbacks from those facilities, and there was not enough room to do it in that alignment.
Okay, very good. And then with respect to the groundwater recharge that Director Natoli was inquiring about, have we explored with some of the conservation partners like Ducks Unlimited and California Waterfowl Association to get their input onto this and maybe potentially become a partner in how this land is used?
Yes, we have been working with, we formed the Sacramento Water Recycling Coalition that helps to support this program. Ducks Unlimited is part of that coalition. We also partner very closely with the Nature Conservancy, who is also a strong supporter of the project because of the benefits that it will provide to habitat.
Great, thank you. I know that they're important partners in that Nature Conservancy area down there because they recognize the benefit to their associations. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on item 5. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Director, District Separate Matters.
I just wanted to say that March 22nd meeting is canceled, but I do want to ask, we need at least 12 votes to adopt the ordinance, so I'm going to be sending an email out reminding members to please come to the April 12th meeting. So that's all I want.
Okay. And you're going to have a fuller discussion. We're going to agendize the whole issue of impact fees?
Yes. After having discussions with them, and we'll bring back.
Who the winners are, who the losers are, who pays, who benefits. Any other directors with comments or discussion? Seeing none, this meeting's adjourned.